calling all of mankind to come to his being his servant. And by being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's servant, we attain that taqwa which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the beginning that this book is a guidance for those people who have the taqwa. We can see the Quran and we can uh, it can everything can be simply very clear to us, or something can be very vague to us and it doesn't even make sense. So it's just the way our perception of it. And for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in many parts of the Quran that we'll get into, where he gives examples, and every example is there for us want to understand and to try to get that level of understanding where we research and we discuss to try to understand the meaning and the purpose behind those examples. Or we can look at these examples and be like, well, what's the point? Why even give that example? And many people in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would do that, as we come to some of the examples in the future, inshallah. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave us this, and He gave us reasons also why we should be His servant. First of all, He's the one that created us. And that in itself is, like we talked about, is enough of a reason for us to be, okay, well, we're Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's servants. He created us. It's not that He saved us, or that He, helped us or did something. We were literally nothing to be mentioned until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the creation of Adam. That's what we Muslims believe. So that's why we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our master, because we say, well, He brought us out of nothing. He's the one that we ought to worship. And by worshiping Him, we actually get the best master. Now, one thing that I did forget to mention, in the sense that when we are servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what we choose, we are going to be servants of one thing to another or another. As human beings, this is one characteristic, one quality that we've been given, that we will serve. Our master, that's the freedom of choice. Do we want our master to be our desires? Do we want our master to be money? Do we want our master to be lust? What do we want our master? What's going to be driving us to do what we do in the decisions that we make in this life? That is our master. So when we choose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our master, then we become free. We say that because this is the only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only master, the true master, that it can that needs nothing, and is everything that He gives us is there for our benefit. When we have desires, when we choose desire to be our master, we choose money to be our master, lust, these things can create certain things within us where we start either becoming selfish, we start becoming greedy, we start not trying to understand or being considerate of other people's feelings and emotions, and we take advantage of people. All those other things will lead to our destruction in this world. How people assume and look at us and be like, look at that person, he's like this or she's like this, because of these characteristics that we've attained, because of the master that we've chosen. When we choose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our master, you see the examples like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions as they walked about the world. Everyone just looked at them and be like, what is special about these guys? They're not chasing the same things that we're chasing. And they're okay to give it out. So what's going on over here? And that brought this questioning and this thought in their minds that something is different. And when they came to question them, when they came to understand, and the Sahaba anhum had the practice behind their words that affected the people's hearts, which led Islam to spread to three-fourths of the world. So even though in the beginning it's the governments or the people in authority, they took it to battle at times, because that's what all governments and people do. But then once it was done with, the battle was over with between the people in charge, the people that were the general public, they wholeheartedly accepted Islam. And not every place was it like that. At times it was characteristics, at times it was business or something else that led people to understand that these people are different, and I want some of that difference. I want to see what they have. It seems so sweet that they're able to walk this world with such peace and tranquility. But if we're not careful, even as Muslims today, we will be running with chaos and confusion instead of peace and tranquility. Why? Because it's not the name that gives us that peace and tranquility. It's the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us to be His servants, and He calls us and says, I've created you. That I've created you, and this is the main reason why we should be the servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then not only that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues to give us reasons why we should be worshipping Him. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He's the one that created or made for you the land to be like almost like a type of bedding, or spread out that we can walk around it. And He's the one that brought down the rain from the sky. And through that rain, He's made the sky for you as somewhat like a roof, and brought the rain from the sky. And from that, He made the fruits and vegetables and vegetation come out therein. And it's made for you. Not only now for us, it could have been I mean, we can see parts of the world that the terrain is it's impossible to walk on. We can't walk over it. People have climbed mountains, and they go through so much struggle, and they do it as an exercise or a support, or but it's dangerous, and sometimes it's very dangerous depending on which mountain. But the land is not like that. Where we live, where we choose to live, it's spread out in a way that we could even look at the roads that we made. It's we're not making these roads. We're simply paving what already exists. Otherwise, why do we have such curved roads going around this way and that way? We're just simply following the paths laid out on the floor, and to an extent, obviously, we can do what we can, but for the most part, that's the easiest way to do it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already laid the pathways for us to just pave. Now, then not only that, but to look at the sky. I mean, it's not really a roof. It's not there as a building or a structure above our heads, but it seems that way. And we see when the sun comes out, we have a different sky. When it goes away, we have a different sky. All of this is a structure. Yes, it's there, and it scientifically can be proven. But the beauty and the perfection within it, that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, go look up there in the sky and see if you can find a fault there. That should right away point to a designer. We don't take little things like that in this world for granted at all. If anybody's walking in the beach right now and they see 4 or 5 little stones stacked on top of one another, they're not going to be like, whoa, the wind and the ocean over here are amazing. That it can stack up these 5 or 6 stones on top of this rock right over here, these little small stones. We don't think that. Right away it goes to our head, oh, I wonder which kid did this. Oh, I wonder how much time they spent on someone doing that. We say somebody with intellect came, took these little rocks, stacked them on top of one another. That's a sign of intelligence. Why? Because it's a structure, a small little structure that has some form to it that we say, you know what, that's too a little impossible for nature to just do that. For it to just naturally happen, the ocean hits this rock and it flips and it lands on top of that rock. Then a few minutes later, it hits another small little pebble and that flips over and falls on top of that one. Then 4, 5, 6 little rocks on top of one another. And we're not going to take that and say, okay, that can be done on its own. But how are we going to take something so beautiful and something so perfect in its form? Well, when I'm talking about every single thing to take into consideration of how we use the sun to calculate the time of the day, how we use the moon to calculate the month, how we see the stars and use that to navigate, so many different things around, and this perfect structure, we're just like, yeah, it just happened. It just happened on its own. The more beautiful and complex the structure is, the smarter the designer. If you see some little kid, they build a little thing, maybe out of Legos, like, whoa, that's pretty nice. You pat the kid on the head, good job. You see a genius take that Lego thing and build something even better. You see someone else coming out with a car, and then another one come with an even better modified car, something that runs on water, something that runs on electricity, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to have hovercraft soon. We're going to say it's getting better and better. Why? The people are getting more and more knowledge, continuing from what the people in the past learned. And we're just giving more credit to the designers. Like, whoa, that's amazing. And comparing our phones from 10 years ago, whoa, that's amazing. but something so perfect that when we just look at a mirror and the complexity within the design of the human body, and we're just going to take that for granted and just say it just happened on its own. Yes, over a long period of time, but it just happened on its own. And the perfection within the design of the human body that's there, where everything just works as if it's a small city or a universe in its own, where we have the intellect sending electric currents and help making decision, the heart which pumps blood and helps the body to go one way. Every single organ plays its role. This small little tongue that I don't even notice, I'm just flapping it up and down, but sounds are coming out from this from my voice box in such a way that you can understand, I can understand what I'm saying. Change it around, take it to a different area, it's a different accent. I can't understand that language until I sit there and study it. That's how complex we are, and that's how perfect we are. And obviously, it's when I say the design is perfect, not in the sense that we as human beings are perfect. We human beings, in our characteristics and our actions and our deeds, we have a lot to improve. But the fact that we're made in a certain way, and our hands and feet and everything is made in a certain way, it's just there for us to be leaders on this world when compared to all other creatures. The design is there for us to lead. We can sit there and we can make a society a perfect place for animals, for minerals, for everything to just be work together. Or we could just destroy everything. Kill animals left and right. Killing one another left and right. Destroying the environment. We've been given this form to lead. And where we want to lead, where we want to take society with us, that's where our choices, the freedom of choice that we have, where we can choose our servant, our master, and we can choose to be servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or choose to be servants to something else. Now after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He's also brought down the rain for us. Now the rain is a source, the rain and the fruit and vegetation that we have is a source of our livelihood. We sort of get tricked and think, oh, I got this piece of paper and this will help me buy things. But that's just something we created. We as a society came and said, okay, we need to make some currency. Let's do this, and we'll give this much value to this piece of paper just to make sure everything just runs smoothly. And obviously there's business reasons and everything attached to it. But when it comes down to it, what matters is the food and vegetables and fruits, because all the vegetation, the animals depend on that, we depend on it, and that's what keeps us living. Water and food. The only reason we're able to give value to money is because there's an abundance of those things right now, to an extent that we could say, okay, this is worth this much money. But imagine if there's a drought, like in some countries they go through. Imagine if there's a food shortage, like some countries that they go through. All of a sudden, that piece of paper or that gold coin that you had for you could buy so much can only buy a little bit, because now the food has become more valuable than what you have in your hand. The water becomes more valuable than what we have in our hand. So this is our source of livelihood, where we get this rain, which is the water, and that brings out the food, fruits and vegetation, which is food for us and animals, that we can continue to live in this world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. He gave us a place to live. He gave us a beautiful sight and means of guidance by looking at the sky. And He gave us all the food and fruits that we need to live. Now He says, be my servant. And when you be my servant, all these things, your house, your beautiful view, the water, the food that you have, you're gonna use it and spend it wisely. If we don't take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our master, then all of a sudden you'll see us fighting for food. You'll see us fighting for water. You'll see us fighting for land. You'll see us just fighting for scenery. And that's what's going on all around the world right now. Even if we're Muslims right now, we've chosen, we can easily say by name, Allah is my master, but we get tricked by our own desires and the whispers of the devil, that we start choosing other masters that's pushing us, but by name, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our master. So we have to be very careful that that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the hypocrites in that sense, that they purposely, intentionally said, Allah is my master, and said, but no, I don't believe in it. This was their intent. That's not our intent. When we say Allah is our master, we want Allah to be our master. But we have to go back to the Quran and to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to show us to how to make that statement into a reality. So where we really do have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our master and He's guiding us in every single bit of way. And now we're no longer fighting for these things, but we're helping one another. I have more, okay, well, this person has less. Let me help them out. Let me help them out. This person has more, they help other people. And if every single person, they don't have to, like we look at Islam, Islam doesn't say, okay, what I want you to do is you have this much money, you only need 20% of that money, so the other 80% give it away. Islam doesn't say that. Islam says in a year, if you have a certain amount of money and you've held that money for a year, 2.5%. 2.5% give of that to certain individuals that don't have enough or that need it. Now, what does that show? That shows that if every single Muslim, if there's 1.5 billion Muslims in the world right now, and even if you take from that 1.5 billion, take even half of that to say that they have enough money to give zakat, and we start spreading that zakat, it'll suffice. Everyone will be taken care of. Not only that, but that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that we have to do. Certain individuals, they'll be like, you know what, I can give more than 2.5%. And they'll give more from their own means to other people on their own free will. Now we don't have anybody to give to because everyone's taken care of. You make your money, you keep what's yours. 2.5% of it you give to people that are needy. Others, the rest that you have, it's up to you. You want to give more, you want to go spend on other things. This is what's obligatory on us. So if every single person, we start having this mentality that Allah is my master, now we're no longer fighting for money because we're taking care of each other. We're no longer fighting for land because we're making sure that we have space for one another. Neighbors are taking care of each other. Friends are inviting people who don't have enough to their houses, to feasts, to other things. Everyone is there living in harmony in this world. Because why? I'm not thinking, okay, I have 1 billion, how can I make it 2? Okay, I have X amount of square feet of land, how can I double that? How can I do this? What can I do to make it harder on this person? And there's literally people like, they want their neighbor to move out. They'll give them all kinds of hardship to try to make their neighbor move out. That's not allowed. One of the worst things we can do in Islam is to make it hard for our neighbor in any way. Whether we're on the top level in the apartment complex and we're making noise on the bottom, hurting them, or we're leaving our trash out, making the next house smell the trash, or whatever it is, in any way that we harm them, it's not allowed. And the opposite, in any way, the smallest of ways, if we can help them, that we should do so. Right now, I said it before, a lot of people may need help. Maybe knock on the door and ask your neighbor, hey, do you need anything? Whatever it may be. Maybe you have a whole bunch of, you just got into Costco and you got a whole bunch of rolls of toilet paper and the neighbor needs it. Something small. It's nothing like big. Maybe something else. Maybe they just want, hey, hey, how you doing? Everything good? That itself can bring a whole bunch of people just this light of joy that they're like, oh, the guy actually cares. He's actually asking about me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us all these things, and then He says, after all this you have فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا. Do not make an equal partner. Do not make a rival to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That now all of a sudden you're saying this God I'm worshipping is equal to the God up there. Na'udhu billah. Everything we say, nobody will say that this stone or this other God or anybody, even in Christianity we have Jesus. They have to you have to understand there's another being, Father, there's a Father, there's someone in the sky, there's someone I don't know. Yeah, I worship these things. God's everywhere. The God's in here too, or this. They give their own explanation. But everyone says when it comes to ruling everything, when it comes to running everything, when it comes to the design of everything, it has to be a creator outside. And the only thing that they'll say is if, okay, no, you know what, it just happened on its own through different processes. There's nothing out there. It's just random. And like we said before, that's impossible as well. To have such complexity, we don't apply it anywhere else. Why would we apply it on this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says after and وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, that you know, like you have these, just look at the way you live and the rules that you live by and the everything that you sort of understand in life. Just that, try to apply that when you try to understand the system and how the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Like for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those days, they really looked down on having a daughter. And they would have only, they would really be proud if they had a son. They felt daughters were burdensome. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you raise a daughter, you're getting paradise. And he flipped that thought in that time. But they really had that thing that, you know, if I have a daughter, it's a misfortune, it's hardship. If I have a son, they can bring money, they're a breadwinner, they go hunt, they can bring stuff to the house. But then, they themselves, it's wrong. This idea is wrong. But they themselves say, I have to have a son, there's no way I can have a daughter. But then they'll say, God has daughters. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh, you don't even take that for yourself, but you attribute that to Allah. So just look at the way we, like I said, when it comes to a few rocks on the beach or any other stuff that we say that, you know, this college system is so complex, it's so nice, everything just works. The society that we've built is so complex. We have the piping system underneath the ground. We have the government. We have this. Everything. We're so intelligent. We're doing things. So it's so structured. It's not like a third world country where they have so many flaws and so many hardships that they're going through. There's ease for us. Okay, that's fine. That's a sign of your intellect. It's still not as complex as the whole system that exists around us. Even the chaos within the system, the tornadoes, the earthquakes, we're starting to understand, and a lot of scientists now know that it's structured. It's not just random chaos like they used to believe. Two gods used to have a fight, and that, oh, there's lightning that struck, one of them's mad. It's a system. It's a system that's there, and it's all there to benefit. Where land, I don't want to get into a science class right now, but it's just understanding this whole thing around us should understand that, okay, if we consider ourselves to be intellectuals, that we've achieved so much, then everything that's around us so complex, we have to understand there's an even higher intelligence, an infinite amount of intelligence outside of all of it, time and space. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for all of our shortcomings. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.